Welcome to the Connor Charlin podcast, where I, Connor Charlin, meet up with a musician, hear about what makes them tick, what kind of life experiences they're bringing into their own musical journey. And on today's podcast, we have Devin Hopwood, singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, living between Texas and Indiana. On today's podcast, we talk about the meaning behind his new album called Husk. Yes, as in corn husk, or other types of husks, I suppose. We talk about not feeling good at sharing on social media, becoming more experienced in life and less hip, and the tension that brings, and the joys and importance of being corny or comedic or yourself in your own art. So please enjoy Devin Hopwood. Devin Hopwood, pleasure. Hey. I've really been enjoying listening to your Husk, man.
Oh, right on. Thanks.
It's been sweet. So I got your information from Garrett Longbarrels.
Yeah, Garrett Langebartles. Yeah,
Langbartles.
It's a big last name. Yeah,
Longbarrels. Yeah, classic. Sorry, say it one more time for me.
Langebartles.
Langbartles.
Yeah.
And so you recorded in his studio this project, right?
Well, I recorded Husk down in Austin at Good Danny's. I was living there during that time, and it was like a pandemic recording. It was like we were supposed to go in April when the pandemic first started, and then it got canceled. We went back in June, like all masked up and everything, and wiping everything down because we had no idea. Recorded like the bulk of it at Good Danny's, live to tape with drums, bass, and guitar or piano, whatever I was playing. I moved back to Indiana for a bit, where I'm from. Did like the vocal takes, some other guitar stuff at Garrett's studio in Indy.
Cool.
So
cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Garrett told me that your band had to back out at the last minute for some reason. Can you tell me this story?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I had a really there's just a lot of great musicians down there. Yeah, I had killer keys player, killer bass player. They were doing like a workaway thing in New Mexico. It was cutting it close in April. No, actually, sorry, this was in June. At the last minute, their workaway hosts asked them to quarantine 2 weeks before they left, which would fall into the time that we were recording. So as much as it like was a bummer, I totally understood, and I was really looking forward to playing with them. They're close friends. Dan Petrovito and Gina Spigarelli down in Austin. They have a band called Dead Animal, and just people you want to collaborate with, you know. But it worked out. I found a different bass player, Abram Shook. We got some good takes, and yeah, I really wanted to capture some of it live to tape as much as I could. We rehearsed once, and I've never played with Abram or Andrew Stevens, who was a drummer, and it all kind of worked out. I was really happy with it.
That sounds incredibly stressful to have to immediately fill in a band again. What was that experience for you like?
Yeah, I don't know how it happens, but I feel like I find just really kind people wherever I go. People just know people, just asking around. I play in a band called Marijuana Sweet Tooth, and at the time we were in Austin. My band members also like have been there for a long time, so asking them like, hey, do you know anyone who'd be available to track bass on super short notice, you know? And Abram was kind enough to do it. He's very busy and also a sweetheart. Just a lot of sweeties in my life, I guess. But
that's great. So this project, Devin Hopwood, that's your actual name, but you're also involved in that other project, and then you used to go under a different name as well. Yeah. So can you tell me about the kind of evolution of like what you decide to call yourself and how you decide to represent yourself in music, and like why change, and like why at certain points, like what makes you pivot to a different identity, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good question. Back in Indiana, I had a band called Thomas, Tamas, and it's a little bit more indie rock. I was a younger person and into louder sounds, louder for me. You know, it wasn't like we were metal, but it was a heavier sound than what I do now, and that was a little bit more of a collaborative effort as far as the band goes. The drummer during that was Joni Oshanis. He has a project called Perrin. one of the most talented people I know at the time. You know, Ben was playing bass for me, and there's been like different iterations. Alan Murphy was in it as well, and that was a lot more of a group effort. And I felt weird going by my personal name, and I never really like was like attracted to my name as like on paper. You know, like when you see a word and you're like, oh, that doesn't look as good as this looks. So yeah, I felt like Thomas looked better, and Thomas is my first name, so in a way it's still part of my name, but felt more like a group name. When that kind of, you know, people come in and out, and you don't get to stay in the same place forever with people. Once that kind of dissipated, I moved down to Austin, and then that's where I met my friend Mateo. I joined his band Marijuana Sweet Tooth. So that band's more, I'm just kind of playing keys and hanging out. It was nice to not be band leader or like being a front person and then moving into that role. I never played keys for a band, just kind of for recording purposes. So I've been in that since 2018, and during that time I was writing my own songs, and then I had the songs for Husk that I was ready to record, and felt like going under Thomas felt a little strange, and I don't think it matched the songs as well, and I just decided like who cares what my name looks like, it's my name. And you know, it's kind of an acceptance of being myself. And yeah, so that's why I go by my name now.
That's great.
Yeah,
I love the word husk. I think that was just that's a very good word. It shows like it's so open for interpretation. It can like it brings so many things into mind, like a corn husk, or like the husk of a shell, or like emptiness. Or it could also mean bounty, like if you have husks everywhere, like, so it can mean a bunch of things. What made you gravitate to the word? How did it end up finding you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like coming up with titles is something I don't enjoy doing for songs. I feel like normally all of my songs, it's like I call it the first word that I sing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I have a song and I was calling it, you know, like Mixed Signals, and the first thing I say is Mixed Signals. And but for the album, I was, you know, just brainstorming, and I wanted it to be one word, and I wanted it to have multiple interpretations to it. When I thought of the word husk, you know, it coming from Indiana, big corn centric area. So in a way, like that's like home roots, but it's also seen as kind of, you know, corn up there seems a little more country. I'll use that word country. And then being down in Texas where I was finishing up these songs and recording them, you know, corn down here in the Southwest has a different meaning. You know, it's like, it's used for so many things, like it is everywhere, but it felt like I had like two homes and the two places where these songs were born. So there's that aspect to it. And then like the idea of Husk for me was growing out of things, you know, like you grow in it and then you outgrow it. That's just life, right? It's like, you're continually learning and leaving, you know. That's why I called it Husk. And when I heard it and saw the word, I was like, that's it. The artwork was done by Will Gaynor down in Austin, and he like just nailed it for me. Like put the face to the songs and to the feelings.
That's great.
I was really happy with what Will created. So
I love on the album the combination you have between like live drums. There are like real drums, but then there are also I don't think that they're sampled drums. I think that is it like an old like beat machine kind of a deal?
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't have the name for you, but yeah, it was just like one of those big boxes from like the 70s with all the buttons. And
is it the Roland CompuRhythm?
Yeah, it was it was like one of those organ type of beat machines, I guess is what you would call it. But
that's awesome. Yeah, sounds great.
On my demos, I would have program drums that I did, and then Andrew, the drummer, one of those people who can lock in on things, and he was able to kind of find those rhythms in that machine and play with them, and to make it more cohesive, right? Instead of just this is a drum machine. You know, like it can kind of feel forced a bit.
No, I like it. There's a texture to it with some of that older stuff. I find it interesting, and I like sent over some questions prior to this, and you were kind enough to send thoughtful responses. One of the things you mentioned was that it's hard for you to turn your art into content. A social media age. tell me why you feel that pressure. I feel that pressure, but I'm not sure that it's necessarily the same for you. So what does that pressure feel
Hmm.
like for you? What do you feel like
Yeah.
you're being forced to turn your art into?
Yeah. I've never been very good at interacting on social media, and it seems like if you want to share something, that's the best way to do it. But sharing music, like, I mean, I guess really any art is just becoming, at least from my perspective, it's feels like, oh, I'm putting out the single, I gotta have the visuals, I gotta have the, this and that, and then like playing out the content, and it really takes away from, I guess, the romantic idea that I have of like of sharing a song that created and wrote and recorded. And screens are weird. They're like super helpful. Like having this conversation right now, like you being in California and me in Texas. It's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to figure out how to use social media as a tool effectively and honestly for myself. I see some artists that, at least I think they do it. I don't know if somebody's posting for them, but I think sometimes people's personalities can come through social media and posts and things like that. And because it's not a natural way for me to communicate, I'm still trying to figure out how to do it honestly instead of it feeling like a chore, like doing posts. I'll sit on my phone for almost an hour
Oh
being
wow.
like, is this sentence right? Is that, it's like, is that what I'm supposed to say? And that's where I get caught up. And it's also like reflective, I think, in just sharing music. I'm not somebody who shares a lot. Trying to break down that thing that stops me from doing that, because there's nothing wrong with sharing. It's good. You're supposed to do it. So, but I want to do it in an honest way, or
Yeah.
in a way that feels good, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
It sounds like with the number of sweet people that you have in your life that you are a person who shares.
Hmm.
So I imagine that you share with them quite a lot. Am I right in assuming that?
I would say maybe not music necessarily, but I'm pretty open to, like talking. Like
Yeah.
I'm a pretty open book, and I enjoy being an open ear for people, or a listener. I know, like, people need people, and I'm happy to be. I just like loving people, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. So
Yeah. One of the reasons why I made why I made this podcast was because I feel like it's the most annoying thing in the world to just always be telling people like,
wow.
"Hey, listen to me, listen to me." So I was like, I want to make a platform where I can unashamedly take all the nice
Yeah.
things that you say, like write out your words and then
Mm-hmm.
post it on my platform cuz that feels very genuine to me. I also
Yeah.
love listening,
Yeah.
and taking advice from other people, other peers, or people further along, and being able to like pass it on under my profile has
Yeah.
been has been sort of my way to skirt by. Because the
Yeah.
majority of the year, what do you have to say? Just like, here's another picture of my face, and this is my next show.
Yeah.
Which doesn't feel good necessarily. It's an interesting balance figuring out what feels good and how to still play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You mentioned a romantic notion that you
Yeah.
have of sharing music in like the most romantic way you can imagine it. Like,
Yeah.
how would you want your music to be shared?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of just more intimate settings, like listening rooms, or smaller venues, even house shows. I think are really nice. A stage that's a foot off the ground feels, there's this divide that happens. And if I were to like create the most romantic thing, yeah, it would be more of a listening room setting where it's just
Yeah.
quiet. Played in so many places, like bars where it's just people talking, or even
Mhm.
coffee shops. There's blenders going, and I think entering into a moment, because sometimes I think about a show or a group of people, and it's like, man, this group of people will never be in the same place again,
Yeah.
So it's things like that where I'm like, let's just be present.
Yeah.
'Cause it's easy to like look at your phone or to not listen. I don't think there's anything that important on there on the phone, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I think live shows are the most romantic way to share music. You get to sing it to someone like yourself. which is a really special experience. I agree. In one of your answers to one of my questions I emailed you, you mentioned that as you're getting older, music is both getting harder and easier. And I thought that was really well said, though
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what you mean, but I feel it. How
Yeah.
old are you, if you don't mind sharing? And
Yeah.
then two, like, how has it been getting harder and easier?
Yeah. I turned 32 in April. Birthdays in my 30s have been strange. Also, I don't know, like reassuring in a way, because I like each year I'm like, oh man, I'm the oldest I've ever been, right? And it's just like I'm in my 30s now, but I also have never felt more ready to like, or more. I feel pretty well equipped to handle life. You know, I've lived a lot of things and worked through a lot of junk. And as far as music goes, you know, the older I get, the less, you know, like we talk about the game, and it's a game that I don't want to play, but I know that I have to play. I feel like Bill Murray in Space Jam when he comes out and he just does the one play. I feel like I can't play the whole game. You know, it's taxing for me to be on social media and to like create this image, and so that part's really confusing. The easy part about it is it feels like when I was younger and I was writing, that was a little bit more image focused in that way. I'm like, oh, like what does this song sound like? Does it sound like a David Bazan song, or does it sound like a, you know, like at the time I was listening to Local Natives, does it sound like a Local Native song? Now, I don't think about songs in that way anymore. You just become a better musician too, and you know how to get some, you know, some certain sounds, and it's easier for me to play and to write, but it's harder for me to know what to do with them and how to share them and to be a musician, you know, because I think as a creative, you know, you'd like to be able to make a living and pay some bills by creating, and in order to do that, you know, you got to kind of take it like a business sometimes, and I'm not a business person, so
That sounds really interesting. Like you're getting better in your craft, but feeling more and more distant from the relevant means to share it. And
yeah.
I think that that's really relatable for like where we are age-wise. I'm 30, like
Oh, nice.
right on that cusp of Instagram is still relatively new to us. Like we were the MySpace, Facebook, and then
Mm-hmm.
Instagram was our big like I don't want to do Instagram, and but you had to, and
Mm-hmm.
that was like the first shift. And now it's like if you don't have a TikTok, you know, what does that mean? And continuing to develop it, and
Yeah.
it'll never stop. Like there will be a next thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be like you singing in a 3D space
A
to the
hologram, yeah.
to the metaverse, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very very frustrating to be getting better and feeling more detached from the like relevant social media channels. It's like
Yeah.
it would be nice to have come up in a time where like the thing you posted to naturally was the
Mm-hmm.
big thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have a friend, his name's Jeff, and he's a fantastic songwriter, and he writes a song a day, and that's it. Like he doesn't record any songs, he just writes a song, and then sometimes he'll pick it back up and play it, but most times it just goes in his notebook. I really respect like people who have that discipline and don't need, that's all that they want to do. It's just like, I just want to write a song, go through that experience and that thought process and those feelings, and that was enough for me. And maybe when I get older, you know, like maybe I'll be an old person who just writes songs and just plays them on my front porch, and be content with that, you know, and be happy with that. And I am
Yeah.
content with writing songs for me, but I don't know, there's, you know, there's still this ambition of wanting to play out as well, which I haven't gotten to do a ton in my life of my own music. So
Can you tell me more about this idea of an image that you feel like you need to fill versus
mm.
because the person I see in front of me right now seems like a totally great image.
Oh, thank you. It's very
Like
kind. Yeah.
this is a nice person who writes good music.
Yeah.
I think that sells every day of the week. What do you see as this image? You also mentioned like Local Natives
Oh
and
yeah.
Bazan.
Hmm.
So like kind of what do they have to do with it, and what is that you see when you picture that image?
Yeah. And I'm like coming to realize this as like, even with going by my own name, it's just confidence, right? It's like, you don't know me, but like you said, it's like you seem like a person with a good image, nice, and good songwriter. And I think a lot of times we tell ourselves that we're not enough, and we're our own worst critics, right? And we all have our own battles to be fighting in our lifetime, and one of them for me is self-confidence. I can see somebody like a David Bazan and be like, oh man, like so cool, so his lyrics are so provoking, and it's just like so honest, and and like he'll do these house shows and just shows up and it's just a dude, but feels, I'm like looking up at them, and it's hard for me to look up to myself or to put myself in that position. Stems from a lot of family things too, but just being the listener and the like supporter, it's hard for me to be on the other end, to see myself as that, to have that confidence in myself. So
I recently started realizing that I too lack self-confidence, and I'm pretty like self-depreciative.
mm-hmm.
And I like found where that started, and I was like, oh, got it. I don't think I want that anymore. It would be nice to just have confidence in things that I really believe in, because that I would love to honor myself in that way. I worked really hard I don't want to continue to devalue myself in these circumstances where like maybe you relate to this, but like you devalue yourself, and then you go out and see who is on some of those stages, and you're like, I feel like I could do this. And which isn't, I don't think it's cocky. I think it's like, that is a level of confidence of being like, I think I do deserve this just as much as that person. And that is, I think, the thing that I'm trying to own and not like shy away from, of being like, no, I deserve to be here just like everyone else. And I'm not saying I'm better, and I'm not saying I'm worse. I'm just going to say I also deserve to be there.
Yeah, totally. I think that's pretty spot on. It's always weird to, especially when like money gets put into it, and it becomes like your way to survive and like your way to pay bills. It does with any business. Competition comes up, but it's just like, I think it's just like you said, it's not better or worse. It's just like I want to be a part as well. Like I want to be active instead of being in my head and just inside of my body and not living, right?
Yeah. I have one more get to know you question, and then I'm gonna ask you to play a song. So just in your head, we're looking forward to that. You mentioned that you and your buddy Steven study music artists together, and you just go through like one artist a week. The week that you messaged me, it was Elvis, which I think is a great idea. I think learning like through artists who have made it, and be like, what made them special? Like, what were their typical chord patterns, and what were their melodies? What were their subject matters? What was their like clothing style? First off, what types of things are you looking for as you're studying these super different people? And have you been able to take any of it to heart or apply any of it yourself?
I think what I'm looking for is just an expanded knowledge of artists, especially artists that are, like more recently we've been going through older artists, like Elvis and Aretha Franklin and Nina Simone and things like that, where it's like I've heard either like the greatest hits, or I've heard like the album, but I haven't heard the other albums. I think I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the like span of their career, rather than just, oh, this is the album you got to listen to, because that's, like that's what we're doing right now. Like we're in the span of our creative journey, career, whatever you want to call it. And it's good to see people do different things, It kind of gives me permission in a way to do something different. I mean, it's just like studying history or anything like that. But I didn't get to study albums in school. So we worked, Steven and I, we worked at a coffee shop together. It was like around 2016. And we always had a shift together, during the week. And we just went through so many albums, you know, like we'd go through like the top 100 lists on all these sites, and then we'd kind of like dig in a little deeper from there. But just learning about artists that I never would have dug into, or that I had this preconceived notion of like, oh, I don't think I would like Lou Reed because, you know, he's wild, or because I've heard this one song and I didn't like that one song. And then come to find out, like, Lou Reed's pretty tight, you know? What was the second half of your question?
Have you been able to take in or use any of that information in your own stuff? Been able to
Yeah, I think especially like lyrically, we all, I think, have this, you know, this bag of words that we use a lot, right? Come to our heads quicker than other words, or a certain way of writing or talking about a situation. And I think maybe like the biggest thing I've learned, like starting with the Husk stuff and moving forward, the things that I thought about myself that like weren't, that are kind of corny or like nobody else would relate to, you know, like that's a strength. And to use those things and those images and comedy when you can, not to, you know, like make I mean, if you want to make a parody album or like a joke album, I say go for it. But, you know, but for me, I feel like in real life, I'm a funny person. People laugh at me. I think that's due to that. And it makes sense for that to come through in art. So I'd say that those are the biggest takeaways for me.
Speaking of comedy, on your Husk album, you have an image of a naked dude on the second floor, which I also found pretty funny. Do you have a song off of that album that you're interested in playing right now?
Yeah, I can play. I have a song called Johnny. It's just about getting older, not fitting in as well as you used to. It's named after my friend's cat. Johnny is just a really big cat that lies around and doesn't do anything. Had my fun, it's time to leave. All my tricks fell out of my sleeves. Used to be more interesting. Now I'm a cat too fat to chase a string. I still dance with Ann on Friday nights. Do the same moves I do every time. I'm trying to unwind, but there's too many people in here tonight. Where I stand, someone once stood, and after me another should be better than I was. Should be better than I was. I don't consider it wasted time watching movies that don't rate high, or a fishing trip that ended dry. I guess you never know what you never try. But keeping up with the latest trends, as strenuous as a distant friend, makes me feel uncomfortable, like halftime at the Super Bowl. True genius never dies, she just lives unrealized. All those thoughts fade away. Eventually, what else can you do at the end of your life except say that went alright? I hope to have one thing that that can keep me smiling, takes the weight right off my feet. Do you think you could carry me? How you lived, how you loved, last longer than your body does.
Cool.
That was Johnny. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for listening. This is a intimate situation here, so.
And I really enjoyed that. There are so many good lines in that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I like
where he was, I will be, and then where you are, like someone else should be better than you ever were, like, or better than you ever was, or and then longer than your body does. Great rhymes.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Great thoughts. Fishing trip that ran dry. Great lines. Yeah, really beautiful. And also, it's hard to with this style of music to bring in current influences, like present day influences. Like I thought, I don't think I've heard that was like kind of like a country vibe, but mentioned the Super Bowl, which I don't. Oftentimes, country doesn't allow for that. I think that's super relatable.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I find tension with in a lot of like folk, country, Americana music, is not being able to mention how the Super Bowl makes you feel. You know, like we can sing about anything as long as it doesn't exist, you know, in the media.
Yeah.
And we're getting beside the point. I don't need to dissect the Super Bowl.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's great, because I like that in music too. Like, you hear something and it catches you in a way that it takes you to a different spot than maybe what you're used to in hearing a song, you know. And also, like, sports, and for some reason sports and music, because I'm a big fan of basketball. I always feel like kind of weird, like, saying like, yeah, I like basketball, and I feel like if you're a musician or a creative, you know, like, you don't like sports, or it's not cool to like sports. But that's something that I've been trying to accept about myself.
That I also really enjoy sports. I play pickleball pretty seriously.
Oh.
And it's something that I'm like low key training for, is trying to become a pro. I had over a friend who's also an artist. This was his first time, and he was like staying the night at my house, and I like mentioned that I was gonna play pickleball in the morning, and he laughed, and I was like, yeah. And then I brought it up again later, and he was like, oh, you're not joking. And I was like, no, I do love sports. And he was like, oh, that's like a thing that musicians say as a joke, like, oh yeah, I love sports. And I was like, oh, weird. Yeah, I would love more sports references. Okay, some quick fire questions for you as we're closing out. Any books? Could be audiobooks, could be like lecture series on YouTube. Anything that you've taken in that has nourished you in the last couple of years that you feel like has really impacted you?
Been a couple books. One, like, I'm kind of into like self-help. I like read to understand things better. And there's a book that I've gone through a couple of times, and I'm going through again right now, called When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. It's been extremely helpful in everyday life situations, and also with creative things, you know, like the idea that, you know, like, things come together and they fall apart. That's what they do. And for us to expect things to be there forever, to like want that control, you know, it's pretty silly. And then it like leads to some suffering, instead of, you know, like, we can feel those feelings, but understanding, you know, life is pretty groundless sometimes. That's been helpful for me to read. As far as other books, I've been through there's a book by Warren Ellis, who's in Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, called Nina Simone's Gum. This journey that he went on, him and Nick put together this show in London, and it was the last time that Nina Simone played in London. He sets up the scene of Nina walking out on stage, like, just quiet, you know, like, very commanding presence. I don't know if Nina would do this at every show, but she took out her chewing gum and just put it on the piano and just started playing, you know. And when the show was over, Warren went up there and took the gum from the piano, and it's like been this not token,
Totem.
Totem's the word I'm looking for. Like this holy totem that he kept with him. It goes through this journey where Nick Cave is started this museum. The gum ended up in the museum, and just he talks about all the lives that piece of gum affected and touched. It's just really cool. Like it's just a piece of gum, had a lot of meaning. So it was a good read. I'd say those are the two most recent things that I've read and been moved by.
Do you have any mentors, heroes? They could be in your life or on the internet that you really gravitate towards and want to emulate.
That I know personally, or that I just
either it could be.
Yeah,
you know.
That's a good question. I'm a big fan of Devendra Banhart. I mean, I don't know if he's much of a mentor, but when I hear Devendra do interviews or like the readings or poems that they share, I think it's a way that I would like to look at life and live life. Man, mentors are hard. I think I have a lot of good friends, around my age that I can talk to, and that like my friend Steven, maybe a mentor of sorts. Yeah. But we're friends. It's strange, but he's a very helpful person. Just has good perspective.
What is you can go two ways with this. What's like either some good music advice you've received or some bad music advice?
I listened to multiple episodes of your podcast, and I was kind of thinking about this question.
Yeah. And
I remember when I first started kind of writing my own songs and playing them, I was telling one of my friends, like, "Hey, yeah, I'd like to have a full band behind this." And they said, "Oh, your voice wasn't made for a full band. Like, it's made for soft music." And then and then in spite of that, that's when I started writing stuff for Thomas, and it was louder stuff and kind of faster for me. Yeah, and I was like, "See, I can do it." But now I feel like I do like softer things, the nuance in that, and I can still rock and roll.
Yeah. That's
but
great.
Yeah, that was some bad advice, but also I kind of used it as fuel a little bit.
Yeah, that's harsh.
Yeah, well, it was harsh, but it was like it didn't feel harsh in the moment, or didn't I don't think it was coming from a place of my friends saying like, you can't do this. It's just like trying to be helpful in a way,
Yeah.
Like, like I think you do better off writing softer things, but
yeah.
Yeah. As far as good music advice, I think just being yourself and having that confidence, I think is the biggest thing to like remind myself of. So I wish you had something better.
No, you're good.
Like sage advice. Yeah.
Good advice is harder to find than bad advice, which is why I like the bad advice. Last thing, Husk is out. Anything else that we should be looking forward to promoting for the present and future?
Yeah, releasing albums are weird, man. It's just you put it out and then that's it, right? It's I mean, like, you're supposed to have this plan of like, post release, months 1 to 3 you're doing this, and months 3 to 6 you're doing this. But try to do like some video stuff with people that I enjoy collaborating with. So I recorded another album called Hans and Luck. I recorded that at Garrett's studio. That's, I would say, like 50% of the way done. So I think that'll release probably next spring. It'll be good to get that one out. Trying to play more, like play out live. I have a show this weekend in Marfa, Texas, and then the following weekend in Indiana. Yeah, trying to play more, record more music. I guess just keep listening to Husk.
Great.
It's like kind of like you were saying with posting the photo of your face. It's like how many times can you talk about something like post your face or post this album? So
well, it's an album worth listening to. I really enjoyed it. You sound great on it. The mastering's great. There's just a lot of good space for each of the things to live, and I think it sounds great. So congratulations.
Thanks so much, Connor. Thanks for listening to it. Yeah, I do appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and clap us out. thank you kindly for listening to the podcast. It's really just an excuse for me to meet amazing people and learn from them. So if you like this episode, feel free to take a look at some of the other artists I've talked to, or let me know if there's someone in your life who's a musician that you'd like me to talk to next. You can learn more about my music at ConnorChurland.com or find me on Instagram or Spotify under Connor Churland, ConnerCherland. All right, see ya.